Hi everyone, welcome to another Coding Bytes, this time staying along the theme of TwinCat BSD. So we had Victor make contact with us and say that he'd like to have a video put together of installing TF2000 into TwinCat BSD. So I thought, well, there we go. Off we head on this journey, and we'll see what comes out the other end. Now, just as a word of warning on this video, not necessarily a word of warning, TF2000 is still in beta at the moment, so there are a couple of steps. There are a few steps actually that I'm going to be taking during this this live demo, which you won't need to do. There's actually a small issue that we have, and that issue being, during the installation, it's unable to make an SSL certificate. So normally with TF2000, when we upload our projects, when we even interact with the server, we're doing it using a secure connection. By default, being external to the server and dialing into it, you have to use HTTPS. And that actually falls over at the moment. So we can't go directly via HTTPS. And as such, there's a small workaround we need to do. Just to give it a kick and say, hang on, you don't need to worry about that. Allow connections via just HTTP instead. Okay, so a bit long-winded there, but I will show you the parts which differ, and I'll show you the parts which is standard. Obviously, it is beta, so things may change. Just bear that in mind. Always bear that in mind. But along the way, because this is going to be one of our first installation of a package videos, I'm going to show you some handy commands as well, and where we see some of the problems, and even doing a little bit of diagnostics too. So here we go. Let's start this journey. So what really, I'm just leaving myself in a position where I'm going to be working with VirtualBox for all of this. Something I'm just going to make sure of first. Just going to go in here, and I'm going to set the network onto NAT because I need to connect to the internet. We're going to download packages. We're going to download TF2000. And so let me just start this up and running, and off we go. So just bear that in mind, you're going to need an internet connection for that. You can install packages locally, so you can just copy the files in. There's a program called WinSCP, which I've used a couple of times now in this process. We won't use it today, but that allows us to copy files into TwinCat BSD using Windows. So you can install packages this way. I'm going to show you how to install packages the normal way, the way you tend to prefer doing this. So let's just wait for this thing to finish booting. It's always pretty quick, which I like. Let's just move this down. And away we go. So this is pretty much the end of the video, our last video. So administrator, and we're just going to go in password as one. So this has got TwinCat installed. It's currently running. If we were to connect to it via XAE, we would see TwinCat here already. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to update. So we want to bring in TF2000. That's our first step. So job number one, bring in TF2000. In order to do that, we're using this PKG, the package management side of things, and it does it all for us. We're going to do as. So do as is the same as sudo. It's not actually the same. They've just aliased sudo to be do as. So sudo being the Linux version of I want to run as administrator. Do as is for FreeBSD. Okay, so anytime we write do as, it means we want elevated privileges, and we just write the command now what we wanted to do in the first place. So the first thing we're going to do is do pkg update. It's not going to ask us for our password because we're going to do this elevated, and what that does is it goes off and connects to the tcbsd.backoff.com. I think it's that neck of the woods, and it goes off and takes a copy of all of what's available. It doesn't download them, it just takes a copy of the catalog. So the catalog itself has now been updated. We can now we don't need to be elevated for this one, but we can do pkg search, and we can look for, let's just look for anything which has got TF inside it. So we can see it's already starting to find packages available to us, and in that list we can see TF2000 HMI server. So that's the one we're going to install. We're installing a package, so again we're going to do as because it's an administrator level thing. All right, we're on the administrator user, but it's not the highest level, so we have to elevate ourselves once more, and we do it per command. So we're going to go do as pkg install this time, install. And then we're going to go TF2000 .hmi, dash HMI server. Oh, I don't know if it's case sensitive actually, but let's not just mess up. We'll just go with that. And password is 1. It's going to ask us, there's actually a package it's going to upgrade first. It's got dependency, so we're just going to say yes to this. And we're going to say yes to the actual package coming through. And that's it. That's it doing its thing. We could have stipulated the version number that we wanted to bring in as well. There was only one there, so it found which one, it inferred which one we was going to use. You can see there it's already starting to fail with licenses. We don't have a license for TF2000 at the moment. We'll do that later. And then again, with the license side of things, you're doing that via XAE. So when we connect to it, we'll just activate a 7-day trial license, that type of thing. So far, so good. That's the step that we would normally take, installing the package. There's a second thing we need to do, or something just to bear in mind. Anytime we add a package from Backoff and it has to put holes in the firewall, it'll do it automatically. So that's just something to bear in mind. They should be pre-configured with the firewall. If you are having issues and you need to do bits and pieces where you need to obviously check to see if the firewall's up and running, there is do as. See, I've got to remember these things now. Do as service. Oh, that's the RVIC. PF is the firewall. Stop would stop the firewall. So let me just show that. Disabling PF. Firewall's now down. And likewise, we can just go start as well. But you shouldn't need to, because like I say, when you install a package, it automatically puts the relevant holes in your firewall for you. Okay. There is the configuration file pf.conf, which you'll find in the etc folder. Now again, if you're new to FreeBSD or new to even running Linux, that type of thing, or Unix, you're going to have to get used to some of these folders. etc is one of the places where you get a lot of configuration. So anyway, we can come back to a little bit on the firewall if needed in later videos. But just for the moment, pf.conf if you want to go in there, have a little look around. But right, that's the first bit done. The second thing we need to do is it's going to add itself in as a service that will start running automatically, but it doesn't automatically start. They've actually put into it to say there is a startup, but it checks for a variable first. So there's like a system variable that we have to set to say we want this to start. Otherwise, that auto start doesn't actually run. And where do we find that? So it would actually give you a warning as well. If we restarted the virtual PC now, as it restarts, as that auto run kicks in, it says, hey, I'm potentially going to auto run the TwinCat HMI server. I'll check to see if this variable is set, and it says I can't even find the variable. It'll actually warn you, and you'll get a little warning come up saying that the variable's not been set. You'll actually see it as TC HMI SRV underscore enable, and it'll say it's not been set. So we need to work out actually where to put that, and we need to set this ourselves. So we've got another command coming up. We're going to do as. Do as, this time we're going to use a text editor, and we've got easy editor, so just one to remember. Now the file that we're going to be doing is in etc, which is where a lot of configuration files are, and the configuration file that we're going to be working with is rc.conf. There we go. Again, a standard file. This tends to be a bit of a standard file for people into this. So so these are all some variables, and we can see here we've got TC system service underscore enable. Yes, very similar style that they're doing. So we need to make sure that we put in TC HMI SVR underscore enable and is equal to yes. Oops, yes. There we go. Yes. That's the step we have to take. So what that's going to do is that auto run was going to auto run anyway, but it checks to see should it start, should it not start. It would check. It would have fallen over, said can't find that variable because it doesn't exist. So we're putting it in here. So that's all good. We can hit escape now. It's going to say A to leave editor, A to save changes. Nice. Right. Now, really, if we weren't in beta and we've got a valid working version of TF2000, really that's the steps we take. That's pretty much it. We would be now restarting the virtual PC, I would put it back onto local host adapter so we can talk just locally. I would spin up and put a license in the server itself. So activate a TF2000 7-day trial license. But you're back into the world of XAE at that point. The fact that we're talking to a TwinCat BSD box is by the by. It's the same process that you'd normally take. But one thing that is a bit of an issue is, unfortunately, we can't actually connect via HTTPS because there is an issue with the certificates itself. So what we need to do is actually go in and change a configuration file. Now, there may be other ways of doing this at the moment. This is just the way I've taken. You can force TF2000 to start with a different endpoint and say, as we know, 0.0.0.0 means anyone. Changing the HTTPS into just HTTP means that anyone can connect to it with an unsecure, so it doesn't matter that the certificate doesn't exist. But what I'm going to do is those configuration files are actually held in an SQLite database that's living behind the scenes. So this step, I'm going to go in and change that value. I'm going to change my endpoint already because I know we're going to need to do it. And also as well, because we're still on a box that's connected to the internet, we need to pull in SQLite anyway so we can actually make these changes. So that's where I'm going to go. So this is where it starts. We're now branching away. Up until this point, we could have just restarted, set the network, connect to it via TwinCat XAE, give it the trial licenses, type in its IP address. And while we're here, how do we find the IP address of a free BSD box? It's if.config. Just remember, because ipconfig, that's a standard one, if interface, that's how it's staying in my head. And you can just see up here, I've got my 10.0.2.15 for an internal test network at the moment. That's your IP address. So when we actually come to connect to the server itself, maybe to set up the initial password, because obviously we have the system administrator password we have to set up on TF2000, that's where you'd be hitting /config, and that's where we'd normally go. Anyway, let's carry on, because otherwise I'm going to waffle about the same thing too much. So do as. Well, actually, we'll just do a PKG search, and I want something SQL light is what I'm after. We can see here there's a few packages. The one that I'm actually going to use is SQLite 3, so which is the bottom one. So I'm going to do as PKG install, and I want SQLite 3 dash. I think there's a certain point where once you've got to the level where it knows what you're typing, you don't need to type all of it, but just there's not too much to type, so I'll type the whole thing, password 1, and it's going to be downloaded. Yes, want to download that, and done already. That was pretty quick. Okay, right. So next bit we need to do. So where things are kept, we'll go hunting for this. So I'm going to show you where to find some of the files. So we can still use CD like we normally do. So change directory. The first thing we're going to go into CD user, and we'll start heading off into a place where we can see our typical TwinCat folders that we know and love anyway. You can use ls to see the contents that's inside a folder as well. So user, we're going to head into the user area because TwinCat's installed under the admin user. We're then going to go into CD. I think you do space. Let's just give that a go. CD local. Yep. So the local, again, still a little bit early days with me with the actual folder names, but we've then got etc, so for anything configuration-ish. And if I list in there, we can actually see on the top corner there, we've got the TwinCat folder. So we can now CD into TwinCat and just list out that 3.1 functions MC. We're starting to get into that usual realms that we all know and love. So I'm going to CD into functions, because that's where the owns, there we go. We'll list out as the server. So we're going to CD into TF2000 HMI-server. List it out. So far so good. Now, I'm going to be changing a configuration file. So in service, so I'm just going to cd into service and list out in there. We've got this TCHMI project, so we're now getting into the project realms. So we're going to do cd into TCHMI project list, and we've got storage.db. So storage.db is a typical file that we use in TF2000 to hold the current configuration of the server. That's the file, that's the SQLite file that we're going to look to open. So it should just be a case of doing SQLite, also make sure we're doing as, so do as SQLite. And I think I can actually pass in store, let's give that a go, storage.db, password is 1. Sorry, SQLite, it's got 3 at the end of it. So because it's SQLite 3, password 1, and there we go. And I think that's going to have opened it. It didn't complain otherwise. So let's just do, let's see if we can run the command. And then I have to pull up my picture for this one because I've got this drawn out because there's only so much I can remember in my head of where things live. So let's open this up here. I'll just put it off the other side of the screen. Let's see if it's connected. So I'm just going to do select everything from value. There we go. That's the terminal. Oh, that's the table. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it had opened the DB. Inside that storage DB, there's a table called value. So which makes it a little bit not confusing when you start writing out the SQL commands. And it's in here that hold all the variables for storage DB. So these are the variables that are used by TwinkHMI. So what we want to do is we can actually go off and find it to start with. So I'm going to select the value. There's a column called value inside this table. So select value from value. That's where it gets a little bit confusing. And let's have a look. Where select value from value. So we've got a column called path, and path is going to be equal to the variable that we're looking to change is going to be called endpoints. And it's endpoints 0. So because it's an array, it's got multiple endpoints. So let's just have a quick look at that. So and we've got to terminate it with an end of character. So there we go. So what that's showing me there, again, you won't need to do this. Once it comes out of beta, you don't need to do this. So what I'm saying there is select the value, because there's a column called value. In our table value, we've got a table called value as well. Bit of a shame, but anyway. So in the table value, select the value of the same row whose path, and the path is the symbol name, is endpoint 0, the first of the endpoints. And we can see here it's HTTPS 0001020, which is by default. That's the default one, but it is using HTTPS in order to do it. So what we need to do is change that value. So we can do update instead. So update the value so update value, and again, I'm going to read this out just to make sure I get it right. Update value, that's referring to the table name. So the table name of value, we want to set the value to equal, and this is going to be our new one. So, so this is going to be HTTP, going on / 0.0.0.0.0, there we go, 1020, and that's the end of that. So that's our new endpoint that we want to set, and that is going to be where the path is equal to endpoints 0. Whoa, sorry, keyboard's all out on this one. And end of line. Done. Now we can go up and just have a look. Let's see if it did it. So let's put the end line in here as well. And you can see it's taken effect. There you go. Little bit of a step there, but hey, we're into TwinkCat BSD. We're poking and seeing how things are. So let's just get out while we can. So exit SQLite now. And that should be it. So I'm going to now just shut down the virtual PC. So just close this down. I'm going to just power off because we're done. And I'm going to swap the network over so we're, again, just a single network cable between myself, my PC, and TwinCat BSD as well. So I'm just going to go into here, swap that over to host-only adapter, which means it's just going to get an IP address that we've decided upon. You actually find that up in File, and there's the ability to change the host network and what IP addresses it gets. So just in case it doesn't pick a nice one. Wait for this to reboot. And just remember as well, we still haven't put a license into this yet. So really, I mean, let's use this as a marker too. So up until the point where we installed the initial package and we edited the rc.conf file, everything's up. Up until that point, that's valid. The bit that I did after that, up until now, is custom just because we get this problem with the SSL certificate. We're aware of it. It's going to be coming out. The latest version, the new version's out. That's not going to be an issue. So this is only just a little workaround for that. From this point on, we're back to normal again, okay? So maybe apart from a slight change of the address where I type HTTP rather than HTTPS. Anyway, so that's up and running now. We don't actually need to log in at this point. We can just keep it as is. So I'm just going to go through. I've already got TwinCat open at the moment. I'm just going to do a search. Ask it to broadcast search. I'm only going to check the virtual host adapters just because that's the only one it's actually going to be sitting on. We can see here that it's been found. This box has now been found. So I'm just going to add a route. Remember, you can only connect via secure ADS, so make sure that's ticked, only because the ports in the firewall aren't open for non-secure. Close that. Now that we've connected, we can go into our license. And all I'm doing is, just in managing license, I'm just manually forcing in a PLC license, and I'm going to force in TF2000 as well. I'm just ticking those two. That's now saying that they're missing, which they are. So we can just press the 7-day trial license and do the capture, MOVT. 7-day trial licenses have been generated. I'm just going to activate the configuration just to make sure everything just gives a kick, although I'm going to restart the VM. Okay, and that's it. I am just going to kick it off again. Sorry, I might have done a spelling mistake there. Because as you can see here, this is the warning I was speaking about. If you've not set that variable correct, TC HMI SRV _ enable is not set properly. So sorry about that. There we go. I'll have to write a little message on the video back at that point. So administrator password is administrator 1. Okay, so we've got to go back in and just do as easy editor. We're going to be using the file etc rc.conf. Password is 1, and let's just see where we went wrong. tchmi svr enable equals yes. Let me just check my notes just to see. You've probably seen the issue already. So it's tchmi srv. TC HMI SRV, there we go, SVR. Anyway, it's text editor, so we just have to go down. There we go. That's worthwhile. At least that way you got to see what that value was. So SRV enable equals yes. Okay, escape. A to leave, A to save, and we're going to do a shutdown. Restart now, and that just tells it off it goes. We're just going to restart the box. All good. So we've got the license in there, we've installed, everything should be fine. So we should almost be at the end now where we've got a working version. I will do that ifconfig again, just because we need to see what the IP address is that we've been allocated. So administrator. Oops, admin. Okay, ifconfig, which is what we remember, and we've been given it 192.168.56.113. So 192.168.56.112. and we should be on 1020. Just give that a go. Just make sure I did that right. Oh, sorry, 113. Sorry, don't know where 112 come from. 113. There we go. So yeah, we've got access. Let me just move that back a little bit more in shot. So I'll set the password to 1, confirm with 1, and we can go into the configuration page now. And now that we're in, now we can make as many changes as we like because we're in. We just couldn't make those changes before. And there we go. We've got our endpoints. We can see our endpoints. That's what we had actually changed when we was inside that file. Now that we're in, we've got full control over it. So yeah, that was the step that we needed. Unfortunately, yeah, you're not going to be running with HTTP. Well, you can actually run with HTTPS. As far as I'm aware, it's actually the generation of the SSL certificate that's the issue at the minute. So if you were to go in and manually put in your SSL certificate, as far as I'm aware, you can select the files, drop them in yourself, and you'll be up and running again. So like you would normally when you're doing SSL certificates with the HTTPS side. So it's just not auto-generating them at the moment. Okay, so far so good. So I will just go, let's just go that one. A couple of extra things I want to show you. Because again, this is a learning video. If you've made it this far, awesome, well done. There's a few little handy other things that this thing does. So if I go back into HTTPS and only use the IP address of the box, okay, connection's not private. It's just warning you because we haven't got the right certificates at the minute. But we get access to our device manager again, like we normally would. And a lot of our IPCs do this. But the other thing as well that you get access to is the web console. So let's just have a look at that. Straight or and the password of 1. Because we're in FreeBSD, we get access to the shell. So let's just go administrator and 1. There we go. We can do things like ifconfig, for example. We've just got full access to it again, like we do here. So quite often, if you're going to be on a box that's headless, you have no monitor plugged in, but as long as you know the IP address, you can get in this way, and you can use the console in this way. There's other things as well you could do. You could use PuTTY, for example, as another client that can do this. So that's just something just to bear in mind. We'll finish off the video. Let's just go the full shebang, and let's see if it will actually push itself onto the server, and that we can actually see it. So with this one here, I'm just going to be a little bit careful because this should already be it should already be in communication with the server itself. Yeah, I didn't want to overwrite it, have any settings that overwrite it and make it go back to HTTPS again. So otherwise we'd have to go back through that rigmarole. So so I've just got the basic page just here, which is just with the Beckhoff logo on it. And I'm just going to go into, before we do it, I'm just going to swap that off in Twincat HMI, just always important. Publish to the server, and this time instead of 112, we've got 113, I think our IP address was, yep, 113.56, port 1020. We're not using SSL, TLS, that's why it's HTTP instead, and our password is 1, validate the connection. Unable to connect because target machine actively refused it. Go on, what's up with you now? Let's just have a quick look in here. And something I just want to double check because security, let's just have a look at user management, system administrator. I just want to copy that out just in case. Did this last time and I typed something wrong. So 192.168.56. 192.168.56, 113, 1010. There we go. It's because the minute I untick SSL TLS, it's also changed the port number, thinking that the port it's trying to help us out. There we go. So putting that back to 1020 again, validate the connection. He says, yep. So do you want to do an update? I'm not going to do an update. I'm just going to push it straight in and publish. He'll tell me about that again. We'll just say no, just leave it as is. I'll be interested in see what it would do if I forced it to update. Not sure. I don't want to try, just because the video's been long enough and don't want it to hit something else at the moment. So let's wait for this to do its job. 85%, we're almost there. Let's just get the web browser ready. It's 900. Take that part out, just log in as number one, and there we go. So that's being served by TwinCat BSD. We've got TF2000 in there. As a very, very short recap, because that's been a long video so far. The installation of the package, relatively easy. Just make sure you're using do as, you're using package install and then TF2000. Make sure you correctly add the symbol to rc.conf file. And that's pretty much it. You'd then be able to restart, as long as the SSL was fine. It's not, which means that we wouldn't have been able to access this if we would have tried to hit it via HTTPS. By that point, the server is actually actively refusing connections because it wasn't able to make a secure connection itself. Therefore, it's not going to accept connections. One last thing, and again, just keep throwing things on these videos. There's a command actually that helps you diagnose things, and we'll just see what it's saying at the moment. It shouldn't have any issues anyway because it's all working. But the log files, we don't have a thing such as the event viewer, Windows Event Viewer. That's all quite handy to know if things are going well, if things aren't. In TwinCat FreeBSD, it's actually in the var log messages. That's the file that's actually holding them all. You've got a handy command. You've got a command called tail, which will give you the tail end of a file. So we only want to know the last part of it, so because it could be huge. We can say n for the number of lines that we want to show, and if we say 20, in other words, show me the tail 20 lines of this file. We can just OK that, and we can actually see the whole thing's coming up. Everyone's happy. Publishing is occurring. If you were to do that right at the start, before we made that configuration change, you'd actually just see it failing, saying it was unable to make the SSL certificate. Okay, I'm wrapping it up there. I hope that helps. Any questions, obviously, let me know, and I'll speak to you in the next video.